Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tosif, and I am back with a new live stream. And it's a beautiful Sunday morning, and there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the United States. There's a lot going on in North America. And so I wanted to do a live stream to discuss a very important meeting that is going to be taking place. So if you are tuning in, thank you so very much for being here. And I see Frank is here. Oh, Jackson is here. Frank and Jackson is here. Frank and Jackson are here. Okay, others who are tuning in, thank you. I'm going to, what I usually do is wait for maybe half a minute before I go into the discussion. So if you are tuning in, please like this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. My friends, President Trump and Prime Minister Carney recently spoke on the phone. President Donald J. Trump of the United States of America and Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada recently spoke on the phone, and President Trump congratulated Prime Minister Carney on his victory. President Trump is always nice, and he treats people with respect, and that is what he did. The two leaders had a phone conversation, and President Trump congratulated Mark Carney on his electoral victory in Canada. And soon, the two leaders are scheduled to meet. I don't know if you've heard about that, that the two leaders will soon be meeting. And that is what I'm going to be talking about today. So, my friends, anticipation is building up. President Donald J. Trump and Prime Minister Mark Carney will be meeting on Tuesday. And Prime Minister Mark Carney will be visiting the United States of America, and he will be visiting Washington, D.C., and he will be visiting the White House to meet with President Trump. And political analysts and commentators, they're going to call this a high-stakes meeting. And I agree with that. I think it is really a high-stakes meeting. And intense negotiations will take place, quite likely. Oh, Marjorie just joined. Marjorie, good to see you. Good morning, Marjorie. Intense negotiations will take place, I believe, when Prime Minister Mark Carney visits the White House to meet with President Trump. And I think some people may ask, who's going to win in the negotiation process? Is the United States going to win? Is Canada going to win? Who's going to win? That's a question that people may ask. And you may hear different predictions. Some people may say, oh, the US is going to win. Some may say, oh, Canada is going to win. You know, people have their own opinions. Different people will share different thoughts. But here's what I'll tell you. I believe that it is possible to have a win-win situation. Marjorie wrote that. Marjorie says, win-win, hopefully. Yes, Marjorie, I really appreciate your, optimistic viewpoint. Marjorie wrote, win-win, hopefully. I strongly believe it can be a win-win situation. And I hope that's what it will be. Both countries can win in the negotiation process. But, it depends on what kind of mindset Mr. Carney will have going into the meeting. So it depends on Mr. Carney to a great extent if this is going to be a win-win situation. So far, and I'm going to share with you my views, my honest opinions, and I do that. That is why I do these live streams, because I want to share with you whatever I'm thinking. And many people agree with what I say, many people don't. That's okay. But I'm going to be honest to myself. I'm going to be honest with all of you, and I'll tell you what I think. And I think that Prime Minister Carney's tone so far has been quite aggressive and not very friendly. He wants to challenge the United States, and he wants to find new friends around the world, and he wants to build new partnerships. And Prime Minister Carney seems to want to thrive without Canada's biggest trading partner, which is the United States. And if that is the mindset that Mr. Carney has going into the meeting with President Trump, then Canada is not going to be able to win. It is not going to be a win-win situation if Mr. Carney has an aggressive approach. My friends, I believe that Prime Minister Carney must be humble. That is very important for any leader. It is important to be humble. Okay? Doesn't mean you can't be firm. Yes, you can be firm, but you have to be humble. You have to have an open mind, and you have to be realistic. And I think all of those apply to PM Carney. He must be humble. He must be realistic. He must have an open mind, and he must have the willingness to negotiate and have a friendly approach. Tenacious is here. Tenacious, so good to see you. My friends, please make sure that you're liking this video. Marjorie, please like this video. Tenacious, please like this video. Jackson and Frank, please like this video. Share this video. Help us reach more people. My friends, thank you. So, Prime Minister Carney must be humble. He must have an open mind. He must be realistic. And he must have the willingness to negotiate in a very friendly manner. Prime Minister Carney must keep in mind that without the United States, the Canadian economy will collapse. And I'm not saying that to show strength. Of course, I'm a proud American, but I'm not saying this lightly. I'm not saying this to show strength. I'm not saying this to look tough, but it is a fact. You just have to look at the data. The Canadian economy is heavily, heavily dependent on the US economy. The United States is Canada's biggest trading partner. And so Prime Minister Carney must keep that in mind, because I've seen so far that he has a tendency to be very aggressive. I mean, his tone is very sharp. At times, you can find a certain level of arrogance in his voice. I'm not going to do a recap of the things that he said about President Trump, the things that he said about the United States. Okay, I'm not going to, I've talked about those before, so I'm not going to repeat all that, but he has not been very humble. He has not been very friendly. He has been quite aggressive, if you listen to the things that he has said over the last few weeks. So I think it is important for Prime Minister Carney to keep in mind that without the United States, the Canadian economy will collapse. And there are many Canadians who are seriously unhappy with the way Prime Minister Carney has been handling things. There are many freedom-loving Canadians who are seriously, seriously unhappy. Seriously unhappy with the way this new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, has been handling things, and they are also unhappy about how Justin Trudeau handled things prior to Mark Carney's arrival. And those freedom-loving Canadians, they want Canadian leaders to be sound and to be reasonable. But those freedom-loving Canadians do not feel confident as they look at Prime Minister Mark Carney. Many leaders have visited the White House so far. Many leaders from around the world visited the White House so far. Leaders from different continents, Asia, Europe, Middle East. They have visited Latin America. They have visited the White House so far, many leaders, since President Trump's inauguration. And many leaders have shown the utmost respect to the Trump administration. They have acknowledged America's power and strength and leadership in the world. And that is the right approach. But then you look at Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine. Remember how he behaved during his visit to the White House? Do you remember that, my friends? Remember how rude Volodymyr Zelensky was, and the serious backlash that he faced as a result of his behavior. Remember how Zelensky tried to make a scene in front of the global media. But then what happened? Did Zelensky win? Did Zelensky win? No, he did not. But eventually, logic and reason prevailed. Eventually, Zelensky came to his senses. And as a result of that, Ukraine ended up signing a minerals deal with the United States. So Ukraine had to come to the table and sign the minerals deal. Now let's get back to the discussion of Canada and US. The Canadian people, I believe, the Canadian people have a great future. My friends, if you are watching from Canada, you have your thoughts and opinions. We have our friend Marjorie, who's tuning in from Canada. We may have other viewers who tune in from Canada. You may be watching this live. You may be watching the replay. If you're watching from Canada, I'm sure you're going to find this discussion very interesting. I hope so. Whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, I want to hear your thoughts. But I believe that the Canadian people have a great future, but their future depends on Prime Minister Carney's approach to negotiations with the United States. Carney said, okay, this is something very important. I want you to pay attention because what I'm about to tell you, I want you to listen to this very carefully. Prime Minister Carney said that he had a very constructive call with President Trump. And the two leaders agreed to meet in Washington on Tuesday. And then Carney also said, and this is his quote, he said, and I quote, "My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada," unquote. These are his words. These are Prime Minister Mark Carney's words. He said, "My government will fight to get the best deal for Canada." Now, that is not a good choice of words. Fight. He used the word fight. First, he said that he had a very constructive call with President Trump. And then he said that his government will fight to get the best deal for Canada. Now, if Carney had a very constructive call, why is he saying that his government will fight to get the best deal? You do not go into a negotiation process saying that you're going to fight. You do not go into a negotiation process saying you're going to fight. Let's say you are in business and you are going to sit down with, a business partner or maybe a prospective partner, or you're going to sit down with a supplier or a distributor. Okay? You're going to do some kind of negotiation. And you want it to be a win-win situation. So you say that, hey, I'm gonna have a meeting tomorrow with that supplier, and I'm going to sit down and have a constructive conversation. Or you say, oh, I had a very constructive call with the supplier, and tomorrow we decided to meet, and I'm gonna fight to make sure that I get the best deal. It doesn't match. If you're going to have a constructive conversation, you don't say, I'm going to fight to get the best deal. Because when you use the word fight, it's a whole different dimension now. If you're going to fight, is it really constructive? And if you're looking for constructive dialogue, why do you say fight? So this individual, Mark Carney, I know that he had some pretty big positions in his career. Okay. I mean, if you look at his resume, one would say, oh, he's a very successful guy. He held some really important positions in life. And now he's the prime minister. So very important person. But you know what? Mark Carney clearly does not know how to negotiate. If Carney is going to Washington saying that his government will fight, then it doesn't seem like he is looking for constructive dialogue. Words matter, my friends. You know this. Words matter. What we say matters. Our choice of words matters. Gianna is here. Hi, Gianna. Matthew is here. Hi, Matthew. Thank you all for being here. Make sure that you're liking the video. Please do. If a leader cannot choose the right words, then how is that leader going to serve the country properly? I mean, to my Canadian friends, I'm going to ask this question. Do you think Prime Minister Carney can truly serve your country properly? What people expect from a leader, do you think Prime Minister Carney can deliver? Marjorie is saying no. Marjorie is from Canada. Marjorie is saying no. My friends, Canada right now is not on a strong footing. And I know that some of my Canadian friends or Canadian viewers, maybe they don't consider themselves to be friends of mine. Although, I say, if you're part of this community, if you're a freedom-loving person, you are a friend, because we are very united in this community, because we have a common bond, which is we love freedom. And I know we have amazing Canadian friends here who tune in, and they're not happy with how things are going in Canada. And I understand their frustration. I understand their frustration, and especially with um, the results of the election in Canada. I know that a lot of our conservative friends are very, very unhappy. Okay, they're not happy with Prime Minister Carney. But anyway, the election's over. The results are here. And the fact is, and as I said, some of my Canadian viewers may not like it when I say this, but this is the fact that the Canadian economy is not on a strong footing. So Prime Minister Carney must be very thoughtful, and he must have a very steady approach to any kind of negotiations if he truly wants to serve the best interest of the Canadian people. Bailey is here. Hi, Bailey. Thank you for being here. Right now, what are the top concerns that the Canadians have? Let me ask you this question. What do you think are the top concerns that the Canadians have? Well, the biggest issue, I think, and I study quite a bit, I try to stay up to date on things that are happening, um, obviously in the United States, but also around the world. And Canada is just next door neighbors. And so I'm pretty aware. I'm pretty aware of the biggest issue that the Canadians have right now, which is cost of living. Would you say that cost of living is the biggest issue, or at least one of the top 3 issues? I think so. Cost of living in Canada. Cost of living has risen, and people are struggling. Our Canadian friends are struggling. And what's next? All right, cost of living is a big issue. What else? Can anyone tell me what else? Housing. When we talk about housing, please understand that housing is a basic necessity. It's a basic necessity. Everyone needs housing of some sort. Whether it's a house, whether it's a condo, or whether it's an apartment, whether it's some other temporary living arrangement, whatever it may be, but people need roof over their heads. People need heating. People need privacy. People need to have a decent place where they can sleep, where they can live and survive. I mean, housing is a basic necessity. But in Canada, housing is a big challenge. Housing affordability. Is there affordable housing in Canada? Is there enough affordable housing in Canada? Housing is a basic necessity, and Canada has a massive housing problem. So cost of living, big issue. Housing, big issue. And then let's talk about another necessity, healthcare. People always get stuck with this debate like, is healthcare a right or a privilege? You've probably heard this before, right? People ask the question, is healthcare a right or is it a privilege? I don't get into that debate. You know why? Because I say healthcare is a necessity, basic necessity. And I've heard this debate so many times. Oh, is healthcare a right? Is it a privilege? Is it a right? Is it a privilege? Why don't we just forget that debate? Why don't we just say healthcare is a basic necessity? Okay, housing is a basic necessity. Food is a basic necessity. Clothing is a basic necessity. Healthcare is a basic necessity. And when you look at the Canadian healthcare system, you'll see that there are many big problems. Many big problems. It's important for Canadians to be able to access healthcare services when they need it. But can Canadians access healthcare services when they need it? And in many cases, the answer is no. The wait times are long. Healthcare access is a huge issue in Canada. If you need healthcare services and you need it right now or within the next few days, you cannot wait for months. You cannot wait for months if you need it in days. So the wait times are long. There's a shortage of family physicians, and physician burnout is a huge issue in Canada. Now, some might say, oh, the United States also has shortage of doctors. Yes, we do. I'm not going to say that the US doesn't have a shortage of doctors. Yes, we have a shortage of doctors. And there are healthcare challenges that we face in the United States. But please understand this. Understand this. The United States is a much bigger and stronger economy. The United States has a great leader in the White House who is willing and able to address many challenges that we are facing, including healthcare challenges. We have great leadership now, so we have hope, we have optimism. But ask yourself the question, does Canada have great leadership? Canada has problems, but does Canada have the right leaders who can fix the problems? I'm going to let you answer that question. Yes, the United States has many challenges, including healthcare challenges, but we have the right leaders right now. We have President Donald J. Trump. We have RFK Jr. as the Health and Human Services Secretary. We have Dr. Oz as the administrator of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And we have other really qualified and strong leaders who are going to do whatever they can to address the challenges that we are facing. But does Canada have the right leaders? Ask yourself that question. So, my friends, overall, there's lack of optimism in Canada with regard to the economy. In the United States, it's just the opposite. In the United States, it's just the opposite. We have optimism because we have a president and an administration, and we are very happy with the work that they are doing. That's why optimism is very high in the United States. But in Canada, people are not feeling optimistic. In Canada, people are feeling pessimistic. And it's not me saying that. Some of you might think, "Oh, Tassif, you're just making stuff up." Prove it. Prove it. When you say that there's lack of optimism in Canada, prove it. When you say people don't have optimism and hope, prove it. Well, let me tell you. I'm going to prove it, okay? According to a Gallup study, in 2022, optimism in Canada fell significantly. Only 38% of Canadians saw economic conditions getting better in 2022. Only 38% of Canadians saw economic conditions getting better. And in 2024, that number fell to 33%. From 38% in 2022 down to 33% in 2024. So the Canadians are increasingly pessimistic about their economy. And also, according to Gallup, there are provincial divides in Canada. In fact, there are separatist movements in Canada. Anyone heard about that? Separatist movements in Canada. There are people in Canada who wish to become independent, and they don't want to remain part of Canada. Marjorie is aware of that. And when there are provincial divides, that's bad news for Canada. And so Prime Minister Carney must operate with a sound and reasonable mindset. If he is too aggressive in negotiations with the US, then it is not going to be beneficial for Canada. If Prime Minister Carney views this as a fight rather than negotiation, that is not going to be helpful for Canada. So let's wait and see what happens during Prime Minister Carney's visit to Washington. I hope that the dialogue between the two leaders will be good. As the United States, as Americans, we are certainly in a much stronger position than Canada. So it's up to Prime Minister Carney to decide how he wants to approach the conversation. Will his efforts be sincere, or will he continue to be aggressive? My friends, this week is going to be extremely important for the US-Canada relation. President Donald J. Trump has a great team, and I'll mention the names of some of the team members: Secretary Rubio, Secretary Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, U.S. Trade Representative Greer. So the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Treasury, and the U.S. Trade Representative. It's a great team, and our country is in good hands. And I expect that from our end, the approach will be reasonable, firm, and one that benefits both countries. From the Canadian side, I do not know what to expect. I hope that Prime Minister Carney and his team will have the right mindset and the right tone for successful negotiation. So we have to wait and see what happens. I cannot make any prediction. I'm not going to try to figure out what's going to happen on Tuesday. I can't read people's minds. I don't know the future. I don't have a crystal ball. So I have to wait and see. We all have to wait and see. So you can share with me your thoughts, obviously. Let me see. My friend Terry is here. Hi, Terry. My friend Terry from South Dakota tuned in. Okay, now, as I said before, I believe that the US-Canada negotiations can lead to a win-win situation. So that's why I'm conducting a poll. People have voted. Do you want me to keep the poll open? My friends, let me know. Do you want me to keep the poll open so that you can continue to vote, or do you want me to close the poll? Maybe keep it open, right? My friend Terry is talking about the art of the deal. Yes, President Trump knows the art of the deal. Okay, there are some conversations going on about Alberta. Okay, a viewer is asking, what's your feeling on China negotiations? Um, China is a massive country, big economy. Um, I'm very optimistic that the United States will be able to get what we want. We will be able to accomplish our objectives through the negotiations with China. Okay. Um, it's a very, very complex process because of just the size of China and the volume of trade that we do with China. So um, all I'm going to say is that President Trump knows what he's doing. Okay. And he's got a team. They are very, very successful, skilled, trained individuals, highly respected, and we just have to be patient. We just have to be patient, you know. I see that people get impatient when it comes to tariffs. Um, no, it's important to be patient. Okay. We're not going to try to predict anything. We're not going to jump into conclusions. We're not going to say, oh, the tariffs are going to make the sky fall down. All right. The sky is not falling. Okay. The sky is where it is. But we just have to give it some time and let's wait for the negotiations to move forward. And President Trump has the right approach. He's a businessman. He's a businessman. I mean, keep that in mind. I think that's very important. People tend to forget that, I think, that you're not, this is not just a career politician who served in various elected offices and then ran for president and then got the nomination and then won the election and entered the White House. This is not someone like that. He's a businessman, a very, very successful businessman all his life. I mean, he's got a business empire. You look at all the things he built. President Trump, Donald Trump, all the things he built all over the world, and he's not. Keep that in mind. He's not a career politician. He's a businessman, a seasoned businessman, a successful businessman, a billionaire, a multi-billionaire. But on top of that, he has been a celebrity all his life. There are many very, very successful business people out there, but you'll never see them because they stay behind the scenes. They operate from the background. You don't see them on TV. Yeah, they make millions and billions, but you don't see them on TV. They're not interacting with the public. They're not out there. They're just sitting in some office or wherever they are operating from. They're running their business, they're making profits, they're expanding, growing, but you don't see them out and about. But Donald J. Trump, he has always been out and about. He has been on shows. He has done numerous interviews throughout his life. I mean, you can go back decades and you can find videos of young Donald Trump doing an interview. He has made appearances on WWE in the world of wrestling. I mean, you're not dealing with an average politician. You're not dealing with an average businessman, and you are not dealing with an average celebrity. You're dealing with someone who has great political instincts. You're dealing with someone who is an extremely successful businessman. You're dealing with someone who is a major celebrity. You're dealing with someone who is the best public speaker that you can find. And on top of all of that, you are dealing with someone who has tremendous energy. Tremendous energy. Just like simply, I'm not talking about, mental strength. I'm not talking about, of course, he is mentally very, very strong, very, very determined. But I'm just talking about physically. He is so strong and energetic. I mean, he's a senior citizen. We all know that. Donald J. Trump is not a young man. He's a senior citizen, but he is more energetic and more strong than a lot of people who are probably 30 years younger than him. I mean, you can look at somebody who's in his 50s, and that person probably will not have the level of strength and energy that Donald Trump has, being decades older. And he's not afraid. Donald Trump is not afraid. In Butler, Pennsylvania, remember what he said. He said, fight, fight, fight. In that moment of great crisis, was Donald Trump afraid? Did he hide? No. He raised his fist and he said, fight, fight, fight. That is the leader we have. That is the leader we have. That is the leader that the American people have elected. Popular vote, electoral college vote, overwhelming victory. So, I'm saying all that. I know I've talked a lot. And I think the question that was asked was about negotiations with China, how that's going to go. We don't know the day-to-day elements of the negotiations. The conversations take place behind the scenes. There are many people involved. Secretary Rubio, Secretary Lutnick, the U.S. Trade Representative, Mr. Greer, and Secretary Bessent. A lot of people are involved in the negotiations that take place. There's a lot happening behind the scenes, and it's really happening 24/7 because, China is in a very, very different time zone than we are, because China is on the other side of the world. And so these people are having conversations. If I am to assume, I'll tell you they're talking 24/7. Like right now, let's just see. Give me 1 second. Right now, in Wisconsin, where I am, it is 11:31 a.m., which means in Washington, D.C., it is 12:31 p.m. Okay, half hour, 31 minutes past afternoon, 31 minutes past noon. All right? The time in Beijing right now is 12:31 a.m. So in Beijing, it's just past midnight. So when it's 12:31 p.m. in Washington, D.C., it's 12:31 a.m. in Beijing. Okay? What does that tell you? What does that tell you? That tells you that the officials on both sides, I assume, on the Chinese side and the American side, I bet they're talking 24/7. I mean, these international negotiations are not like, oh, let's wake up, let's go to work. Work hours are from 9 to 5. Let's get the work done. Let's go home. No, it's happening probably 24/7. Okay. Yeah, Rachel is here. Hi, Rachel. Rachel says my computer says 11:32 in Wisconsin. Exactly. No, I'm just comparing the time difference between Washington D.C. and Beijing. Okay, because we're talking about U.S.-China negotiations, and so these negotiations are happening. Conversations are taking place. The American people, we're not going to get a memo, like hour by hour, day by day memo of what's being said, what's being done, what's being agreed on, what are the disagreements. We're not gonna find out all that information on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, the key points we will, the highlights, or what you would call like a progress report. We may get all that information because Caroline Levitt, she does the White House press briefings, and also the different departments, they have their spokespeople. The State Department has spokesperson, and uh, so information will be shared with the media, uh, you know, uh, as and when needed. But then we also know that President Trump, he has his own unique style. He likes to make information public. He will go on Truth Social, write a post, you know, um, and share updates with the American people. So it depends on him what information he wants to provide and when and how much. So I hope. So what I'm trying to say is that at the end of this process, this negotiation process, I think the United States of America will be able to accomplish its objectives. Okay. So we, the American people, we elect our leaders and we give them time to do what we trust them to do. We have to give them time. People tend to be impatient in some cases. Not everyone, but there are some people. Because I previously said how people just have instant reactions. And I think I may have talked about it yesterday. The Dow goes down, and you hear the voices on the left say, "Oh, the world is coming to an end. The sky is falling. The Dow has plunged. What is going to happen? The economy, it's getting destroyed. Everything's over." No, the Dow falls 500 points, 800 points, 1,000 points, and the next day the Dow will go up. If it falls 2 days in a row, just be patient. It's going to go up. You have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, all those people who complain about, oh, the egg prices. And I say, you want to complain about egg prices? Number one, the rise in egg prices, that was not Trump's fault, because egg prices started going up when Biden was in office. And when Trump came in, there was that upward trend in egg prices that Trump had to deal with. And he dealt with it quite successfully. But you complain about egg prices, but we, the American people, have been complaining about prices in general over the last 4 years during the Biden-Harris administration. So the left likes to choose what it wants to complain about. The left did not complain when inflation wiped out people's budget. Every family has a budget, household budget. If you are an individual, you live alone, you still have a budget. You've got your personal budget. How much you spend on groceries, how much you spend on, your car payment, how much you spend on insurance, how much you spend on healthcare, how much you spend on just, weekend recreation. People have budget. And during the Biden-Harris administration, people suffered tremendously. But the left, the politicians, the activists on the left, they just kept their mouth shut. Because, their guy was in charge, Biden. Prices were going up, inflation making people face hardship, gas prices going up. The people on the left did not complain. They're like, no, we're not going to complain. And when Trump comes to office, day one, the left starts complaining, oh, egg prices are high. Egg prices are high. I mean, it's like almost egg became the most important thing in the world. I mean, eggs are important. Okay. I eat eggs every day, fried eggs, boiled eggs, because eggs are important, very nutritious, very healthy. People eat eggs for breakfast. Eggs are used in preparing so many other dishes. But eggs are not the singular most important thing in the world. But the left started complaining about eggs in a way that there's nothing more important than eggs. Okay? But what about everything else that went up in price between 2021 and 2024? What about all those items? What about gas price? Right here in Wisconsin, gas price had reached $5 per gallon in Wisconsin. If you know anything about Wisconsin, you know that $5 gas in Wisconsin, that's a nightmare. And that nightmare had become the reality when Joe Biden was in office. And so the left chooses what they want to complain about. Okay? They want to pick and choose what they want to complain about. Let's be honest. Let's be realistic. Let's be practical. Let's acknowledge the truth. And the truth is, the Trump administration is the best administration, in my opinion, and I know many of you agree with me, the best administration that we could have gotten, and we got it. I mean, this really is the dream team. You want to talk about the dream team? This is the dream team. Donald Trump chose each and every one of his cabinet members after a lot of thought, after a lot of analysis. I mean, when you choose your cabinet members, you're looking at the future. You're looking at the present. You're looking at the future. Because you have to be able to figure out how this particular individual will perform in that role. So like Marco Rubio, U.S. Senator, right? An excellent U.S. Senator, very, very respected, an honest man. But when President Trump decided, hey, I'm going to pick Marco Rubio for Secretary of State, then President Trump, at that point, he had to think, okay, we know Rubio as a U.S. Senator. We know his record. We know his approach. We know his policy priorities as a U.S. Senator. But can he do the job successfully if he is selected to be the Secretary of State? So for each and every position, Donald Trump had to look at an individual, the individual's history, the individual's personality, and he had to figure out, how is this individual going to perform if I choose him for this role? And I can tell you, President Trump chose the right people for the right positions. You look at each and every cabinet position. President Trump, he assembled the dream team. The dream team. Do you agree with me, my friends? I know I've been talking for quite a while. I'm going to pause. If you believe that President Trump chose the dream team, please write dream team. Dream team. Or you can write the best administration. Or you can just write Trump 2025. Write that. That's fine. So, my friends, this going back to the negotiation with China, I think we are going to accomplish our objectives in those negotiations. Okay? I mean, China wants to act tough. I understand that. They are a major economy. Okay? They have to portray strength. That's what they try to do. But you know what? The United States is far more powerful. If China thinks that they're a major economy and they produce all these different things, but you know what? If you produce all that stuff and you don't know where to sell your stuff, what's the point of production? Production by itself doesn't mean anything if production doesn't lead to the end goal of selling your products and making money. I mean, I don't know, I can produce whatever, you know, produce something, produce furniture. I can sit here, I can have a workshop and my tools, and I can say, oh, I'm going to make furniture. I'm going to make tables and chairs. And I make 10 tables and 50 chairs, whatever. And then no one buys the stuff. I don't find any customers. No one's buying my stuff. Then what is the point of production if I can't sell it? So China is a major economy, and their strength is the fact that they produce all this stuff. You know, you look at the tags, they'll say made in China, made in China, made in China. All right. But they need to sell their stuff. By themselves, they're not going to be able to economically survive if they cannot sell their stuff. And where are they going to sell their stuff? They need a big buyer. And the United States of America is the major buyer. The entire world needs the American consumers. Our strength is our consumers. We buy stuff, which is why other countries are able to make money. Other countries produce stuff and we buy those stuff, and that's how they make money. If they're not able to sell in the United States, if they're not able to sell to the American consumers, where and how are they going to make money? Terry just wrote, the USA is the largest consumer. That's what I'm talking about. So logic and reason must prevail. Before any other country wants to act tough, that country must keep in mind that they have to sell their products to the US. They need the American consumers. And also keep in mind that there's something that makes our country the strongest in the world. You know what that is? Our energy assets, our natural resources. No one fully knows how much of natural resources we have. I don't think anyone can attach a dollar figure and say, this is the total valuation of America's natural resources. I mean, our natural resources are so vast, such massive in quantity, that it is, I would say it's impossible to put a dollar figure. I mean, there are estimates. I think people can make estimates, but we don't know for sure. And so when other countries say, oh, they have cheap labor, they have competitive, they are competitive because they have low labor cost and they can produce more, they can do all that, produce stuff at a lower cost. You know what makes us competitive? Our energy assets. And that's why we as a country, we need to prioritize utilizing our energy, coal, oil, gas, whatever we have, we need to use, we need to make the best use of our natural resources, God-given natural resources. That is something that I have mentioned in the past, and it's something that people must keep in mind. God-given natural resources. We are blessed. The Almighty God has blessed our country because God has given us tremendous natural resources. We did not create the earth. God created the earth. God gave us the natural resource. And then so we must make the best use of the resources that we have. And we are going to be energy dominant, and we will continue to be the strongest country in the world, and we will be stronger than ever before. My friends, I'm going to pause and let's see. People are tuning in. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Let's see. Did I see Laura Floyd here? Laura, I think I saw our friend Laura. Laura, thank you for being here. All right. Okay, but by the way, let's see this. I see a lot of new viewers. And if I try to scroll back and read everyone's comments, it's going to take me quite a while. So I don't want to sit here silently reading all your comments because it's going to take me quite a while. So let's do one thing. Let's do a simple exercise. Jamie is here. Hi, Jamie. Let's do one thing. If you let's see, out of all the people who are watching this right now, how many are Trump supporters? Let's do that. Okay. If you support Trump, just write Trump, or I support Trump, or I love Trump, or I voted for Trump, or I love the Trump administration. However you want to express it, just write something about Trump. That'll tell me whether you support President Trump or not. And then I'll have more questions afterwards. So let's do this one first. All right. Okay, Diane is not a fan of President Trump. Okay, I get that. Jamie is saying our president has saved our country. Absolutely, Jamie. Absolutely. Terry is saying Trump is my president. My friend Terry from South Dakota is a strong supporter of President Trump. Okay. Andrew is saying it's a litmus test. It's not a litmus test. There's no litmus test here. Draco is saying Trump, America first. Marjorie is saying Trump. Okay. We have a lot of new people. Sign up is saying Trump 2028. Oh, wow, love that. All right. Okay, my friends. I think what might encourage people to respond is my hat. Now I think people may have stronger motivation to respond. Jaffer is here. Okay, Jaffer doesn't agree with an earlier comment that was made here, right, Jaffer? All right. Okay, my friends. Let's see. Lotus is saying, go back to India. I'm not from India, Lotus. I'm not from India. Why do people assume? Don't assume. Don't assume. You know, if you have a question, just ask people. Hey, where you from? Don't make assumptions. Don't make assumptions. All right. Terry is saying we have a lot of new complainers today. Yeah, a lot of people complaining. That's all right. That's all right. Let people complain. You know, that's all right. Freedom of speech. As long as no one's insulting anyone, that's fine. Rachel is saying the hat's on, MAGA. Absolutely. All right. Okay. By the way, to the new viewers, hold on. Adjust this a little bit. To the new viewers, let me ask you, write the name of the state that you're from. If you are from, if you're here for the first time, if you're participating in the live chat for the first time, just write the name of the state where you're from. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, city of Madison, state of Wisconsin. And where are you from? Corey is from North Carolina. Shrek is from Oregon. Terry is from South Dakota. Proud and free. Proud and free, South Dakota. Andrew is from California. Okay. Joe is from the free state of Florida. Joe, you know what is special about Florida? That's our president's home state now, Florida. We love Florida. By the way, I am planning to do an episode to talk about the Florida gubernatorial race. Okay. Byron Donalds is running for governor in Florida. We're going to talk about that in the future, near future. Okay. It's not going to be too far away, hopefully. I'm going to talk about that soon. Lil Mad is saying, I'm stuck in California. Lotus, I don't know where Lotus is from. Kelvin Jackson is in Dallas, Texas. All right. By the way, Dallas is a beautiful place. I love Dallas. But, you know, I understand Kelvin Jackson from Dallas. Kelvin, you don't agree with me a whole lot, do you? Probably not at all. That's all right. Kelvin is from Dallas. Who else is here? Who else is here? Let's see. A viewer named Cooper has joined. Cooper's view about Trump is wrong. Cooper is saying that Trump's policies only benefit the wealthy. No. President Trump's policies benefit all Americans, especially middle-class Americans and people who have struggled financially, people who faced hardship. When Joe Biden was in office, the low-income Americans, the middle-class Americans, President Trump's policies benefit low-income Americans, middle-class Americans, working Americans. Okay? President Trump's policies benefit most Americans. Okay, so anyone who says, "Oh, he's only helping the super wealthy," no, that's wrong. Okay, that is wrong. Um, all right. Jamie is from Massachusetts, but working in Pensacola, Florida. Let's see. Butch Ramsey is here. Hi, Butch. Good to see you. Butch is here. Nora is here. Nora is saying, Arizona here. God bless our President Trump, Vance, and Musk. Keep them all safe. Exposing corruption and fraud. Keeping America safe again. He's the best president of the United States ever. I agree with that, Nora. He is the best president, Donald J. Trump. Um, all right. By the way, I published a blog post yesterday on my website, tossifanam.net. Okay, anyone who doesn't know my website, I'm going to give it to you. Hold on. My website is tossifanam.net. If you go to my website, you'll see my blog post about the U.S. Ukraine minerals deal. Okay, so you can go check that out. After a very long time, I published a blog post. So go read that. Let me know what you think. And I would be happy to hear your comments. Laughs is saying, nice hat. Thank you so much. Cooper is asking, where's your hat made? It is made, hold on. It is made in the USA. So my hat is made in the USA. All right. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. How many minerals we talking here? Nathan is asking. You know, according to reports, we're talking about more than 20 minerals, I think. More than 20 minerals, okay? That is my understanding. Let me see something. Give me 1 second. That's a great question. How many minerals are we talking about? You give me a little bit of time. I'll try to look that up. Minerals. According to a report, the U.S. is seeking access to more than 20 raw materials. Okay, so these are raw materials considered strategically critical to our interests. So great question. 20 20 raw materials. Give me 1 second. All right. Okay. All right, my friends. Okay, anyone here for the first time, please subscribe to this channel. I would appreciate that very, very much if you subscribe and stay connected. All right. So, do you have any questions for me? We are 1 hour, 15 minutes into the live stream. I am able to continue longer, but if you have any questions, let me know. All right. By the way, I'm going to share my email address with you, and you can send me your questions if you want, and I'll try to discuss the answers to your questions in a future live stream. So my email address is tosif@tosifandam.net. I have pinned that email address to the top of the chat screen. Please feel free to email me. I'll be very happy if you email me, okay? So email me your questions and thoughts and comments. Okay. All right, my friends, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so very much. Oh, somebody's calling me. You know, people, listen, my friends, it's important to be nice. It's important to be, it's important to treat people with respect. And I see some people here using really harsh language, and that is not what we want to see. But sadly, I see that quite a bit here. People using harsh language, people insulting each other. Please don't do that. You know, we have to be nice. We have to treat each other with respect, no matter whether we agree or disagree. We have to treat people with respect. Simon, good to see you. That's our friend Simon from South Africa. Thank you, Simon, for being here. All right. Thank you. Good to see Simon. All right. Oh, look at some of the name calling that's happening here. It is really sad. It is really sad. Okay. Butch is saying take care, Tassif. Thank you, Butch. I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, Marjorie is saying TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, there's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome. You know, as soon as I put on this hat, some of the people there are just they're losing their minds because they don't like this hat. But I will always put America first, and I strongly believe in President Trump's agenda of making America great again. We will do that. So, my friends, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. But before that, I will end the poll. The question was, do you think that the United States-Canada negotiations can lead to a win-win situation? And overwhelmingly, people have said yes. Yes, the United States and Canada negotiations can lead to a win-win situation. That is my expectation, that it will lead to a win-win situation. But as I've said before, it depends on Prime Minister Carney's approach. Is he going to act aggressive? Is he going to be reasonable? Is he going to be humble? Is he going to be logical? Or is he just going to be sharp and aggressive? We don't know. So we have to wait and see what happens. But President Trump, obviously, is a reasonable man. And that's why you see all the different leaders from around the world who visited the White House in recent months. They had great meeting and great conversation with President Trump. Okay, except for Zelensky. Except for Zelensky, Volodymyr Zelensky. Except for him, Zelensky tried to create a scene, but how did that end up for him? Okay, I mean, he had to eventually agree to the minerals deal. So anyway, Zelensky, the way he acted Very, very disrespectful. But in the end, we saw Zelensky had to agree to the minerals deal. So anyway, I hope that Prime Minister Carney will have a very reasonable approach. I hope he will be humble. I hope he will acknowledge the fact that Canada needs the United States. And without the United States, the Canadian economy will collapse. So, President Trump, great man, great leader, and he's going to be welcoming Prime Minister Carney. And I look forward to finding out what they talk about. I'm hoping there's going to be a news conference, and I hope both leaders will talk to the media, answer questions. I look forward to that news conference. Okay, so let's wait for Tuesday. Let's see what happens, my friends. Thank you all so very much for tuning in for this live stream. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so very much. May God bless you all. May God bless our President Donald J. Trump. May God bless the Trump administration. May God bless the United States of America. May God bless our U.S. allies. And may God bless freedom-loving people all over the world. Thank you, my friends. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Sunday. And I'm going to be back again very soon with more videos and more live stream. Thank you.